I'm an urban planner by background, focusing on transportation planning. My wife and I moved into the Beaverdale neighborhood. Really fell in love with the neighborhood and the city.
It's the best, isn't it?
It is the best. And got involved very quickly with the Beaverdale Neighborhood Association and really fell in love with the idea of serving neighbors and really pushing our city to be better. Like you mentioned, recently had a baby last year. She turns 1 this week, so that's exciting. So having that new experience of being a father and that mindset now, and what can the future bring for our city and the city that she'll grow up in is important to me.
Marcus, why did you decide to run for city council?
Sure. So there are several projects that have been brought forward over the last year that I've spoken out against or for different elements of it that I think that city council really wasn't listening to neighbors on and was pushing ideas that were kind of antiquated, old, wouldn't help the city move forward. So I really want to focus on bringing good ideas to city council and pushing for a future that makes our city better.
Give me some examples. What are those projects?
Sure. So one thing that I'd really like to focus on is creating safer streets, making sure that our speed limits and the street design really support streets that work for all ages. Children, we want sidewalks that they can walk on to schools. We want sidewalks that older individuals who are retiring and want to live in their homes can go out and enjoy evening strolls. We want to focus on really cutting back on ordinances that are used for ticky-tacky violations. When we start thinking about stronger neighborhoods idea, I'd really like to bring in the neighborhoods into the decision-making process and allow them to bring forward ideas for projects that they want to see in their neighborhoods. One of my other ideas is to take an overhaul of the city budget and really make sure that when you look at our city budget, it doesn't just show you the dollar amounts we're spending in each department. It shows you how those dollars, our tax dollars, are being used to achieve our city's goals. And that's key to me, is using that data so that I can go out and talk to residents, or residents can come to me and say, I think this money is being spent in one way, but if we spend it this way or in another way, we could achieve more for our city. I think the other thing that I would like to do, thinking around sustainability, would be to focus on electric vehicle charging stations, because as a transportation planner, as an urban professional, electric vehicles are coming in the near future, and having the infrastructure in place now will only encourage individuals to utilize that. Additionally, I'd like to see a community solar program. The city is currently budgeted over the next 5 years to spend almost $3 million on roof repairs. I think it would be a great opportunity to start putting solar on some of our city buildings.
There's been an overarching issue in Des Moines for years of population leaving our city and going to our suburbs.
Yeah.
Part of that has to do with schools and not having access to positive education, the same type of technology, and different opportunities that exist out in the suburbs just don't exist here in the city. We are an inner city school district, and this district deals with issues that other districts don't have to deal with, like 75% of kids being on free and reduced lunch. So how do you help the school board and help the school system become better so that people are then incentivized to stay in Des Moines?
Sure. I think it's really an idea of creating a place that everyone wants to be. What are those reasons that are driving individuals to the suburbs? Housing stock, more options for housing potentially, better schools, but also what's helping drive those schools are investments in technology, like you mentioned. I think about Waukee and the Apple development that brought in a bunch of money for the schools. So I don't know if it's partnering with the industries that we have in Des Moines to really drive that, similar to what Apple did. Maybe it's working with Principal Financial Group or Wells Fargo, Wellmark, any of those key individuals or companies, and really trying to emulate what they've done in Waukee or these other suburban school districts. But also, I think that part of it is creating a place that younger individuals want to spend time in. So investing in infrastructure like the water trails will help retain that talent, and creating a place downtown or in our communities that have those connections, individuals will see that there's that investment, and they'll want to stay there. I also think that the housing stock needs to be supported a little bit more, and projects like InvestDSM is a great opportunity where we can continue to invest in our neighborhoods, and really help show that Des Moines is a great place to live, so you should stay here, and that will hopefully lift up our schools a little bit.
I'd like to talk a little bit about crime and gun violence. And there's been an increase in gun violence in recent years. I'd like to specifically talk about downtown Des Moines. I know that won't technically be in your ward, but people who live in Des Moines are concerned about what they're seeing, because in the last, there have been 5 shootings since November of 2015 in downtown Des Moines, and 3 of those happened in the last 3 months. If this continues, that deters people from enjoying the amenities of downtown Des Moines. They start to think that Des Moines is dangerous, and that further pushes people out. What needs to be done to deter gun violence in downtown Des Moines, in some of those northern neighborhoods, on the east side?
Yeah, I think that gun violence, especially downtown, has created this perspective that some areas are dangerous, and I think that when I was growing up, I heard a lot of things, because I'm from outside of Des Moines. I heard a lot of things about Des Moines being dangerous, and I moving here, I don't see that. I don't see that as a deterrent for individuals who want to live in Des Moines. I think there are great amenities and great benefits to living here. I do think we need to look at programs that will focus specifically on reducing gun violence. But I don't want to give the impression that I want to just generally give more money to a police department that already has 30% of our operating budget. There has to be some ways that we can work within that budget, or other programs that can help focus on reducing violence. I know that downtown, there's been the recent change to the Court Avenue district to make it 21 only, and I think that's a great step in the right direction, but it doesn't seem to me that that's solved the problem. So instead of continuing on with these programs of let's tweak a little bit at a time, let's try to solve the problem where it is, and I think that that's through partnerships.
You mentioned the 30% budget for the Des Moines Police Department, so I would like to kind of expand on that for a couple minutes. And that obviously, with all of the protests that happened this summer, there's been a heightened spotlight on that issue. So that brings me to BLM and the council, the concerns that the community members have brought to the city council, whether you agree with their tactics,
Sure.
Perhaps the concerns that they've brought, they'll tell you that not enough has been done. Yeah. Do you think more needs to be done?
Yeah, I think more does need to be done. I think that a civilian oversight board makes sense. Just thinking about how our city is structured, we have civilian oversight for a number of different programs. We have a planning and zoning commission, which is civilian oversight of the planning process. We have a traffic and safety division or commission, and that's civilian oversight of decisions about parking and traffic safety. Why then can we not have a civilian oversight board that says, how are we policing the individuals in our city? How are we enforcing the ordinances and the laws in the city of Des Moines? I'm also, it's not a large point of my vision, but I'm also for reducing the priority of marijuana enforcement.
That's my next question.
And I think that Councilman Mandelbaum has said multiple times, they set priorities on speed limit enforcement. Yeah, I understand that state law is state law, but if we're not enforcing state law around speed limits, or we've set a norm that says if you're speeding a certain amount over, we don't necessarily pull you over, why then can we not change the norm around marijuana use? I'll leave it there.
What other programs do you think could be added or tweaked to improve crisis management in our city instead of having a police officer respond?
So I think we need to continue our partnerships with and build on our partnerships with Polk County and Broadlawns and really focus on, understanding if we're meeting the needs of, our mental health crisis team. I think that's a great program. I've talked to neighbors and sobering centers are an important improvement that can be made. So I think that it comes back to looking at those programs and seeing if we're funding at a level that helps us meet our residents' needs, but without the data on a lot of these issues, and collecting that data, sometimes we're not going to know, and until we start collecting that, we can't necessarily prioritize budgets appropriately.
Another thing we hear a lot about is food deserts and we were just talking about putting, I won't ask you about it, but a grocery store in the Beaverdale neighborhood. There are pockets of Des Moines that do not have access to fresh food and to fresh produce and to fresh meat. Yep. How do you fix the food insecurity issue in our city?
Yeah, I think that, one way is through targeted investment and in partnerships with grocery chains to help bring stores into neighborhoods where there is a need. But also, I've been monitoring some developments around urban farming in the city of Des Moines. I think that that's great, and I do believe that there needs to be a greater effort from the city in utilizing land that is currently undeveloped to support food production.
Last topic I want to make sure we get to, and before we end our conversation here, is affordable housing. Sure. How do you believe there can be an increase in affordable housing as we add gentrification in some of these neighborhoods? Sure. I mean, it could drive people out of these neighborhoods. They can't afford their homes anymore. Yeah,
the worst thing that could happen is driving individuals out of neighborhoods that they want to be in and that they lived in for a long time. I think that what we need to do is look at creating a mix of housing options, whether that's attached homes, so duplexes, triplexes, quadplexes.
Uses the land a lot.
Creates density, can help bring down the cost of the housing, but also I think that we need to look at, I'm going to put on my urban planner hat a little bit.
Okay, sounds good.
Part of the equation in affordable housing is also connection to jobs. So if we want to continue to create affordable housing in the city of Des Moines, we need to make sure that there are those connections to jobs for individuals who work outside of Des Moines. And we need to encourage our regional partners to make the same investment in affordable housing near the jobs that already exist in their communities. I was recently talking to a neighbor in the Drake neighborhood about some developments there, and the apartments that are being brought in, there's a mix of price points that work and are similar to the neighborhood, a little bit higher, but still similar, so that individuals who want to stay in the neighborhood can stay in the neighborhood with a little bit potentially higher quality housing, but still have the opportunity to work within their price point.
In closing, what do you want the people who live in Ward 1, but also all across the city, to know about you?
Sure. I love my neighborhood. I love the city of Des Moines. One of my favorite things to do is to talk to neighbors about city issues. I'm kind of an urban planning nerd because that's what I went into. So if there is an issue that they are passionate about and they want to tell me about, just let me know.